thought I broke. So I thought I lost.
Right.
And I stood up, and then I heard them. They're like, "This is your world champion." My parents, they sacrificed a lot. And he like looked down at me, and he's like, "You're going to be here one day." Like, that's who you're competing against, is yourself. Me and him would just go, you know, head over heels just down the arena.
We're excited to have Sam Carson with us today. I've pretty much lived in the West my whole life. I grew up in Utah. My family settled a small town in Utah. In fact, my grandpa was from a very large family, and when the Depression hit, they couldn't support the whole family, so he was sent off to Nevada to be a cowboy. And this was, I want to say he was like in 3rd grade.
Oh, okay.
And so it's not what you would expect a cowboy to look like, but they still had to get stuff done. Sam is incredibly unique in that your whole family, you've basically been raised in rodeo, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Tell me a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so I'm the youngest of 6, and all of us have rodeoed all through high school, all 4 years of high school. So my parents, I think by the time I was done, I think my parents had been rodeoing consecutively for 20 years straight.
20 years.
And anyone that knows rodeo, it's not a cheap sport.
Right.
So, I mean, my parents, they sacrificed a lot. Our whole family sacrificed a lot to be able to rodeo, and it was a blessing. It was a blessing in our lives.
The other surprising thing in having a national level champion in rodeo, I think everyone kind of expects you to have grown up on a big ranch.
Yeah.
But that's
probably
not the case.
No, I grew up doing construction. So my whole life I've done excavation, and but we've always had horses. My dad's always had horses and mules. My dad's a big mule guy. So we've always had, you know, animals our whole life. I grew up around steer wrestling since I was a little kid. And yeah, I mean, honestly, when you say cowboy, like the way I see a cowboy and what a true cowboy is someone that works with cows.
Yeah.
And I call myself a weekend warrior.
Right.
You know, the only time I deal with cows is on the weekend, right? At a rodeo, whatever.
Right.
So, but a real cowboy are those that go out on ranches, work, you know, on horses all day, work cows, stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of my background. Yeah, I didn't really grow up on a ranch.
I didn't know about the excavation background, and rodeo is a phenomenal family sport and event. But the funny thing is, I worked in excavation a little while when I was younger, and one of the things I noticed was it was heavily father and son. You know what I mean? Like, it seemed like it started off as a father and son company, and then it grew, and like I was always jealous of the dozer operator because the dozer operator was always either the owner or his son, you know?
Yeah. Like, I was the youngest of 2 brothers. So my dad owned the bit. I don't know if I said that, but my dad owned he still owns an excavation company. Still runs it today. I still work with him. But all my siblings, like my 2 brothers, were the operators. I was just the grunt.
You were the grunt. Yeah.
I was the one that would run back and forth to get stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I always wanted to run the equipment because that's where the AC was,
right?
Or the heater.
Exactly.
You know, but I was just the grunt out there shooting grade.
Yep.
Or anyone that knows excavation, but.
Yep. I used to love when I'd work on the water pull, the kid that was working out there kind of directing traffic, I'd just hit him with the jets every now and then because it was hot.
Yeah. Soak him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excavation's a tough industry.
Yeah.
It can be hard on your body. I mean, I'm not saying I'm tough, but like the guys I work with, like they're, you know, some of them are pretty tough guys. Yeah. So.
And interestingly enough, a lot of them seem to be farmers. The majority of the work that I did was in California, but a lot of the operators, the old hands, came from South Dakota. They'd put their crops in and then come out and work heavy equipment, go back and harvest, come out and do heavy equipment.
Yeah.
And they were kind of what I thought of as cowboys because they were kind of skinny, you know, but they're on these gigantic scrapers, push-pull scrapers flying along down the haul roads with thousands and thousands of pounds of soil.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So with, so I know that you're a steer roper.
Steer wrestler.
Steer wrestler. Is that the only event that you've done in rodeo, or is that you just gravitated towards it and you've perfected it from there?
It's the only one that I've like been okay at, I would say. I'm not much of a roper. My brothers are pretty good ropers, but I never calf roping. So I calf roped in high school, and I do a little team roping, but not really. I just go out and swing a rope. So
is this because of your high school sport that you took up that you decided steer wrestling was the route for you to go?
Yeah. Well, I always loved steer wrestling. Actually, my favorite event that I really enjoyed was actually calf roping. But calf roping, anyone that knows calf roping, it's a tough event. You gotta be really dedicated to it. So, and then I was like, I didn't have a very good horse. So, and I was steer wrestling and I was doing okay in steer wrestling. So I was like, I'll just focus more on bulldogging. So,
and I don't know if people will know from the camera, but you're not exactly small. And so I'm assuming that works to your advantage.
Yeah.
Steer wrestling.
It does. Yeah. It does help to be big. So yeah, I don't know. It just suited me better. So I just stuck with it.
So when did you start competing outside of your town, outside of here?
So generally with like rodeo, you just kind of go over. So like the way that most people rodeo is you have high school rodeo and then college and then pro. High school, you just go throughout all of Utah. And then when I started going out of Utah is when I got into college. So rodeoing for UVU, our region, we go to Idaho, Colorado. Yeah, Idaho and Colorado. So not too far, but then pro rodeo, our region, you're going to go Nevada, Idaho, Colorado. Yeah, you can go anywhere, actually. You can go all over the country.
What's the furthest east that they have rodeo? I don't feel like you go back to Virginia to rodeo, can you?
I'm not exactly sure, actually.
Seems like it'd be Texas.
I think any state that'll hold a rodeo, they do have rodeos in the east. Like I don't know about far east, right?
Right.
But they do have rodeos. I think just wherever they want to hold them. I should know that, but I don't know how far the regions go. So they have like regions that are broken up throughout the nation.
Is rodeo pretty much a United States thing? Is there rodeo outside?
Rodeo is really big in Canada, so
that makes sense.
There's a lot of Canadians that come down in rodeo. Australia, there's rodeo in Australia. There's a lot of like rough stock riders that come from Australia, like really good ones. And then Canada's a big one in America. And Mexico, obviously. Brazil, South America, there's a lot of them down there. Like bull riding's really big in Brazil.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of places. Yeah, like anywhere there's ranches or farm, anything that's cowboy.
Right.
There's gonna probably be rodeos. So
that makes
it's kind of cool.
So you're the youngest of 6. Is the brother that you work with a lot in rodeos, is he the next youngest, or is he an older brother?
He's my oldest. So he's
your
the
oldest.
Yeah.
He's the oldest and the youngest.
Yeah. Yep. So that's why that was kind of significant, that last interview, is because when he was 24, my age, 12 years ago, we were 12 years apart. 12 years ago, I was at the college nationals with him, and I saw him like win and everything. I was 12 years old, and we were like sitting up on the stage, and he like had his saddle, and he like looked down at me, and he's like, "You're gonna be here one day." And I was, I was just this little chubby kid, like, yeah, that'd be cool.
That's awesome.
And 12 years later, like right after, I ended up winning it.
Yeah.
So, and that was the first time I went to the national. That was the first time I went to nationals, and I was able to win it. So that's why it was kind of cool, because it was 12 years apart, brothers, and we both rodeoed for UVU. So
it's an incredibly family-oriented sport, but I don't know that it's very often that you've got 2 brothers that have gone after the same title.
Yeah. I don't know about I would say it's probably rare in like steer wrestling.
Yeah.
But you got in like rough stock riding, you'll have like siblings compete against each other all the time. And the same in all the events, I would say.
Yeah.
But I think just with me and my brother, it was kind of just cool because it was just 12 years after, same age, same time we won it, together.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it was just kind of a cool little experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like I said, like in rodeo, you do have a lot of family that compete with each other. Like the Wright brothers, for an example, they're all, cousins and related, and and siblings, and they compete all the time.
We were talking earlier about different sports where the size of the athlete matters. And it does seem like the riders tend to be a little bit smaller. Whereas if you're going to jump onto the back of a 40-mile-an-hour steer,
yeah,
you better not be tiny.
Yeah, like kind of what I was saying earlier. Like it doesn't, steer wrestling, you don't necessarily have to be big. There's a lot of good bulldoggers that aren't like very big, just super athletic kids.
Right.
But weight does help.
Yeah.
I use it to my advantage. But a lot of steer wrestling is mostly leverage, right?
Makes sense.
Keeping your momentum, that, use that speed of the cow and use its momentum and leverage to throw it to its back. But when you got a really strong steer, it does help to, kind of stop it, anchor it.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it does help to a point.
So there has to be technique. There has to be aspects of it that give you an advantage over someone else, without giving away any of your trade secrets. Is there like, what do you focus on when you're trying to get better?
When I'm trying to get better, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's just me, but I feel like with rodeo, I'll like focus on one thing and try to get really good at that one thing. And then when I get good at it, I got something else I got to work on.
Right.
Like right now I'm trying to work on getting to the steer. So like working on my horse, because that's a big portion of bulldogging is you have a horse and your horse has to be really fast and you have to get up to the cow, really quick. Right. So you have to, that's my challenge right now, is trying to work on my horse, get my horse working, and then also me, getting to the steer. But a lot of the way that like the leverage works, so I'll just kind of go into the logistics of it, is when you get off, so you're running up there to the steer and you slide off your horse onto the cow and you grab the left horn with your left hand, right? And then you hook, we call it hooking or grabbing. And then you grab the right horn in your elbow. So you're holding it like this, and then your horse blows past the steer and your feet kind of fall out in front of you, and then you ski it like you'd be skiing, like snow skiing down a hill.
Right.
And so you're sitting there, you grab the steer's head and you grab it really tight, feet land, hit the ground, and then what you want to do is you want to bring the steer to the left. And what that does is you're taking, because when the steer's running straight, he kind of has all the power, and what you're trying to do is grab his nose. So when you bring them to the side, their nose just naturally comes up for you, and it kind of, takes that speed away from the steer. And then you can what you do is you right here, and then the left hand comes down. When you bring it to the side, left hand grabs the nose, and then you just throw it as hard as you can to its back. And then the steer just kind of comes around and whips and falls on his back. I know that doesn't make any sense, but
no, it makes sense to me.
It's easier. I usually, when people ask, they're like, what do you do? I usually just show them a video.
Right.
I'm like, I can't explain it, but that's the logistics of it. Is all you're trying to do is with the horn of the steer,
right,
you're turning its head to have it go left.
Right.
And then you just grab its nose and you use all that speed that's coming around, because the steer's butt's coming around like this.
Right.
And you just want to hit that nose before its butt gets all the way around, and they just completely fall.
Now I need to watch more closely, because I never thought of the nose. Like you always see the horns,
Yeah.
But that's the second time you were talking about how it originally had the name of dogging, right?
Yeah, bulldogging.
Bulldogging.
Yeah.
And why was it
named? I don't know. This is just what I heard. This is what I was told, I think, as a kid. I don't know if it's actually true.
Right.
But I heard it was some guy would come around and grab the steer's nose with his mouth or something and throw him down, you know, like really aggressively or something. And so they started calling it bulldogging.
But you've never seen anyone bite the nose of a steer.
I don't even know if it's true. I've just that's just a nickname for it, bulldogging.
Yeah.
But
it's funny though, because I think back when I was a kid, where there were a couple old farmers that would tell me things, and then I started questioning if it was really true because they were just pulling my leg.
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably what it probably was.
Yeah.
I heard that when I was a kid, so
yeah,
it's probably not true.
My family decided that they wanted to be farmers, so they moved us out to the fields. And if you wanted to spend time with your friends, you had to go help them with their chores. And they had a whole bunch of little calves, and we would sit on the edge of the barn and wait till they went underneath us and hop off onto the calves.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fun thing to do.
Is your family all from Utah, or do you have family outside of Utah that are involved in rodeo?
So, no, just in Utah.
Yeah.
We mostly live in Utah. I have a sister that lives in Wyoming, but she doesn't rodeo up there.
Yeah.
So the only ones that are rodeoing are actually just me and my brother.
Oh, really?
Me and my oldest brother still rodeo. Like next year we're gonna pro rodeo. We're gonna try to hit it hard and go to all the rodeos in our circuit.
Nice.
So, yeah, me and him are the only ones right now.
So of your 5 siblings, you have one brother.
I got 2 brothers.
And
3 sisters. So there's 3.
Perfect set.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
Did the sisters ever get involved in rodeo, or is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every sibling rodeoed all 4 years of high school. All of my sisters and brothers.
So what were the events that your siblings took?
So they did them mostly. They did all of them. Like my sisters, in high school there's a thing called pole bending. They don't do it at pro rodeos, probably because it takes too long.
Right.
In my opinion, it's not as entertaining. I'll probably get ridiculed for that. But so there's pole bending. So they pole bend, barrel raced, and breakawayed.
So is it kind of like barrel racing, but you're swiping the pole, and that's why they call it pole bending?
So pole bending, what it is it's less. I don't know how many poles it is, but it's just a poles in a line, and the horse weaves in and out of them.
Yeah. And
then weaves back, and then runs, I don't know. I can't remember the exact pattern, but they just have to do it in a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah.
Whatever time's fastest wins.
Yeah.
So that's pole bending, and then barrel racing, you know barrel racing where they race around the barrels. And then breakaway. Breakaway is an event where the girl, it's similar to calf. It's the same thing as calf roping, but they don't get off and tie the calf. So they rope the calf, and then the rope breaks away from their saddle. And when the rope breaks away, they stop the time.
Okay.
So, all they do is just ride out and rope the calf.
Has your mom been okay? Did you guys freak out your mom being involved in rodeo?
My poor mom. My poor mom. She's I don't know how she still has hair. It's a pretty stressful sport, right?
Yeah.
So my poor mom, man, we put her through a lot. Yeah, just through the stress of rodeo and just us kids. Rodeo's a high like steer wrestling, you can get hurt pretty bad. Like I've blown my knees out, and my brother's torn his pec, a lot of concussions, because you'll get ran over by the horse sometimes and kicked in the head, and you're out, right?
Yeah.
So she's always been nervous. Whenever she's filming our videos, it's kind of funny. You're like, you'd start getting off your horse, and then all of a sudden she'd start screaming, and the camera would come over here, and you're just like, oh well, there it goes.
Yeah.
But no, I love my mom. She was awesome. My mom and dad I had really good parents. They were super supportive. Anything we wanted to do, whether it was rodeo or not, they didn't care. They would support us. So I had awesome parents.
Where are your mom and dad from?
They're from just here, Lehigh and American Fork.
Yeah.
So
were they involved with rodeo before?
my dad was. My dad grew up kind of like as a cowboy. He broke a lot. He would break horses all the time and break mules. And and he did a little bit of rodeoing, but not a whole lot, just here and there in high school. And then, you know, when my oldest brother came around, he really loved the sport. So we just started rodeoing, and all of our siblings
went all in.
It. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it happened.
Those are some fond memories when I was younger. You got strawberry days. You got like that was the community event. That was everybody came out for the rodeos.
Yeah, it is fun. Like I said, just going back to family and everything. It's you know, it's a good clean. Like there's nothing. You know, you're not gonna see anything that's bad. I mean, maybe like a wreck or something.
Yeah.
But you're not gonna hear, you know, vulgar language and.
But even then, it seems like they do a really phenomenal job of kind of bringing the crowd together in concern for the cowboy or the injury. It's just, I mean, maybe this isn't appropriate to say this, but it's almost like, especially nowadays, in contrast to the rest of the world, it's kind of like a church service. You've got someone directing the hopes and prayers of everybody in the stadium towards the success of the athletes.
Yeah.
And you just, that's not mainstream. And it's a wonderful,
yeah, it's true.
I love the fact that is what our country is that's the heart of our country. That's the foundation of our country. And so, like you said, it's wonderful to see people coming out in droves supporting that and bringing it back.
Exactly. I love it. Like like I was saying, like when we go to these rodeos, they're just packed. People love it.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people don't realize, but there's a lot of rodeos in Utah. And Utah actually has some of the biggest rodeos too. Like
really?
Some of the highest paying rodeos. So a lot of the rodeos you go to around here, you see some of the best cowboys in the world.
Wow.
A lot of them go to it. Yeah. So kind of unique about Utah.
Yeah.
You know, everyone thinks it's mostly Texas, which Texas has a lot of rodeos, obviously, but Utah holds its own in rodeoing. So
Sam, your sport revolves around timing. It's all about speed. And you'd mentioned when we were talking earlier that it's really mental. And I don't think most people think of it as a mental sport. Can you talk a little bit more about, like, give us an idea of what you mean by that?
So honestly, I think rodeo is, and I think it's like any other sport, right? Like wrestling. I loved wrestling. I wrestled through high school, and that's a very mental, tough sport. I think a lot of rodeo is honestly like 85% mental, and you know the rest just muscle memory. You know, just practicing. But a lot of it is, you know, mental discipline, because, like I was saying, with wrestling, any like football, team sports, anything like that, if you screw up or, you know, have a big mistake, you can kind of change it. You know, you can kind of redeem yourself in a way. Rodeo, you don't. If you screw up in a split second, it's over. You just lost your money.
One shot at it.
Yeah, you're out. You're done. Like the moment that gate opens, if your horse isn't ready, if you're not ready, like it's like, well, tough luck.
Yeah.
you just got to do it. So I think that is, like, you asked me how I do that. I think I'm still learning how to do that. If I'm being honest, is just mentally keeping myself focused, because it is true. You have to go from being calm and focusing and getting away from your nerves. Because like when you ride in there, you know, you in your mind, you know, you only have one shot, and you're just like, okay, you got to breathe through it. Right.
Right.
And one thing that I've learned to do, and that I like to do, is I'll listen to, sometimes if I'm really nervous, I'll listen to a song, like certain songs, and I'll just sit there and I'll bounce up and down, get my body nice and warm, and I'll sit and breathe. I'll do breathing exercises. And it really helps you calm your nerves, because when you know how it is to be nervous, right? You kind of forget stuff,
right?
You know, like as you're talking, like this right here. When you get nervous, you kind of forget what to say and all that stuff. Same as rodeo is, if you get nervous, you forget a lot.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done in the past is I've just breathed, breathing techniques. And when you ride in the box is like where you ride in with your horse and you back up, and then that's where you come out of.
Right.
When you ride in the box, or before you ride in the box, you're usually sitting there and you can feel your nerves, and everyone has it.
Right.
And even your horses, that's another thing that I don't think people think of, but your horses get really nervous.
Right.
Because they know what's going on.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. They can feel your nerves, so you can feel your horses starting to get nervous. And I think that's what really makes a champion in rodeo is someone that can mentally do it. At practice, you can be phenomenal. Like you can have awesome technique, awesome form, go out there. But when you go to a rodeo and you can't control your nerves or you can't control yourself mentally, you're just not going to do it.
It's fascinating. I'm very lucky because I get to talk to the best of the best. And you would think that these are all completely different things. But I still hear the same thing over and over and over on the focus of how you ended up being the best at your sport. One of the things that I think is unique about rodeo that I like you to talk a little bit about is I know that anybody who's ever been to a rodeo, it's pretty humbling how family oriented, how supportive it is. But it's a competition. You're competing against other people.
Yeah.
Who are you competing against in rodeo?
I would say yourself. It took me a while to realize that, but I remember every time I would be like, whenever I didn't do good, I would just be like, oh man, it was my boots I was wearing. Oh, it was my horse's fault. Or this saddle doesn't fit well. Oh, it was a steer. But when I started realizing that, no, it was me. It's because I wasn't mentally ready. I wasn't mentally preparing myself for that moment. That's what happened. Like there's a saying by J.B. Mooney. J.B. Mooney's pretty popular. He's bull rider, world champion bull rider. One thing he says is what did he say? I was watching a video on him and he's like for bull riding, you got a bull rope and stuff. And he's like, I see guys over there, these are his words. He's like, I see guys over there changing their boots out, changing their bull ropes for different bulls and all this stuff. And he's like, all they're doing is fighting their head. And that kind of made me realize, I'm like, I've been fighting my head. Because last year in college rodeo, I ended up like 12th in my region. So I didn't do good at all, like very badly. And I was like, man, why is this? And then mentally, I was able to, really work on myself mentally. And that's when I started winning rodeos. So it really is between you. Like that's who you're competing against is yourself, I would say.
Now, you also talked about your event. It's not just you, and the people that are helping you succeed at this event are not necessarily on your team. In fact, they're your competitors.
Yeah, they are my competitors.
So what is that environment like?
It's pretty good, actually. Like I said, steer wrestling's pretty. Like everyone knows each other, everyone likes each other, everyone helps each other. Like my really good friend, my best friend, his name's Hayden Anderson. Me and him grew up bulldogging together, and he hazes for me, I haze for him, and we just compete right along with each other. And I've missed a haze for him to where he didn't get a time, and he's done the same to me. And that's just what happens. You just say, well, that's how it goes. And there was actually, that brings to my mind a really cool thing I like about just sports in general or any hobbies. I'm sitting here looking at this dirt bike. I love dirt bikes. I love riding dirt bikes. But this is kind of off topic a little bit. But anything you do, like sports, hobbies, anything, I think the underlining purpose of all of that is to build relationships. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're doing. Like if you're, I'm sorry, if you're out in rodeo or any sport, like, yeah, you want to be competitive because that's where it's fun. That's what makes it, fun and everything. But you got to also have a mindset of take a step back and be like, okay, what's the actual over view of all this? What's the purpose behind this? And I think it is to build relationships with people, help people out, right?
I never thought about this before, but in all reality, rodeo is a gentleman's sport. It really is. Like you come across as this rough cowpoke, I guess, but in all reality, you really are supporting each other and helping each other, even though you're competing against each other. Yeah. And that's a gentleman. Like that's the epitome of what I think of when I think of a gentleman's sport.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because you got to you just swallow your pride on a lot of stuff. You got to be humble. I would say that it is definitely a gentleman's sport.
Because sure. I feel like if you were to just disregard everyone around you and go for yourself, you'd be the bad guy. That basically would mark you as the bad guy. And so you have to play within the realm of civility. You have to be honorable and noble and have integrity. Yeah. And excel in a noble way. Yeah, you do. It just goes back to life, right? A lot of it has to do with respect. Yeah. Right. Like if you don't have respect, people don't respect you. Right. And that's, it's just with life. Like if no one respects you, like what's the point of it, Yeah. Or if you don't respect yourself, that's what kind of life is that? Yeah. So It's the same as rodeo. Yeah. If you're, an a-hole and you're only out for number one, people know that and they can see it. And at the end of the day, what good is it? Yeah. You can't rodeo forever. And like I said, I think we're just all here to build relationships, help each other out, because that's what lasts. Rodeo comes and goes. Like I can only bulldog until my body allows me to, right? But the relationships that I build during it and the way that I can help people, how people can help me, that's the beauty of it. As you mentioned that, I start thinking about some of the old cowboys. They probably haven't been on a horse in years and years and years. And yet I'll see that they'll do different things for them to show respect for the fact that they were at one time, they were top dog, And I think that's really cool because a sad thing that I see among pros in a lot of other sports is when you're not in the limelight, you don't exist. You get kind of shuffled to the back. But it's nice to put an emphasis on this is where we came from, and the successes that they had contributed to your ability to succeed in what you're doing. Because I'm sure times have gotten a lot faster since the 1950s. They have. Yeah. I can't even imagine how much time has been shaved off in steer wrestling. Yeah, it has. Yeah. No, that's very true. And sitting in the stands, I know it's fast. I see you come blasting out of the gate, but when you said 40 miles an hour, I remember I want to see how fast I could get my mountain bike going. So I came down the hill from Sundance, and I was just pedaling as hard as I could, and I was shocked that my speedometer didn't get over 45. You know what I mean? But you're jumping off the back at 40. Yeah, about 40. I say that, but it's about 40 miles per hour on average, depending on where you catch the steer, right? Yeah. If you catch the steer right out of the gate, you're not going to be 40, but when you're running down the arena, and you're going pretty fast when you hit. Is there a favorite venue that you like to compete in? Like a favorite rodeo? Yeah. Not exactly. There's a lot of fun rodeos. Like Strawberry Days is a pretty fun one. Spanish Fork, I got to compete in that one last year. That one was pretty fun. I don't know. Every rodeo has their own uniqueness about it, and that's what makes it fun, right? Right. Every rodeo is different. The event and the way you do it's all the same, but like the atmosphere and stuff like that
is always different. The scenery is always different. So it's kind of fun.
How long would you say that you're with the same horse? Is it long term, or do you switch horses a lot?
So the horse I've been on, the horse I went to nationals on and won was, he's 25 actually right now. And that's really old for a horse.
That's really old.
So I've been with him since junior year in high school. So I've had him for a while and I've just stayed with him, but now I'm retiring him. I got to find another horse, but it just kind of depends. It depends on the person. Depends on the horse. You know, if the horse is a really good horse, you're going to keep it around for quite a while.
Right.
Until it starts slowing down, and then you want to start looking for another horse.
25 years. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah, he's 25. And he's still, I mean, you know, he just helped me win the nationals, so he's still doing really well.
Yeah.
But I'm going to retire him. I got another horse that's coming up, so.
Is a lot of this, does it boil down to the relationship that you have between the horse? Because you did mention, like, when you get in the gate, the nerves are not just your nerves; they're also the horse's nerves.
Yeah, it's the horse's nerves, and that's another key in rodeo is you've got to have a horse that can kind of handle. You know, you got to have a horse that's athletic, right?
Right.
And that is a competitive horse as well. Because if you get a horse in there that just can't take the nerves, what they do is they just blow up, and you'll see it at rodeos. They'll, you know, come rearing out of the box. And my old horse, he has a problem with that. That's kind of like low key. I've been kind of looking for another horse for a while because of that. Because when I ride in the box, he's you can tell he's just nervous and he doesn't want to sit right. You know, it's kind of like a sprinter. They got to get down in their position and go.
Right.
That's the same thing you do with a horse. And he just never wanted to get positioned. I'd have to sit and fight him in the box just because mentally he, you know, either they don't want it or they just don't know how to deal with that pressure. Yeah. But then there's horses that are champion horses that know how to deal with that pressure, right?
Right.
And it's just like a human. Those that can deal with the pressure and do well under the pressure are champions. Those that don't can't. Like, you just never do it.
Yeah.
So it's the same with a horse, I'd say.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Something you don't think about, right?
Right. Obviously, we're acquainted because of sports supplements. Mm-hmm. What do you do as far as like strength training to be able to prepare for these
rodeos,
these challenges? Yeah.
So, I mean, you see me at the gym. I just do the basic stuff. Honestly, I don't really have any secrets or anything. Recently I've been working a lot on core. I feel like any sort of sport, you got to have a good core. Right. Strong core. I think specifically for steer wrestling, this is just me. I think what helps me is one, core, and back. My back. I've noticed having a strong back has always helped me. Huh. And then just being athletic with your legs.
Yeah.
Like doing, you know, like sprinting, runs, leg lifts, stuff like that. Just being athletic on your feet is a big deal.
Have you always done strength and conditioning, or have you relied on technique from a young age? When did you decide that strength and conditioning was part of it?
Well, so when I was in high school, I was a lot bigger. I was a chubby kid, and I got sick of hitting the ground really hard. Because when you're chubby, and then there's another thing called hula handing, and it's where you grab the steer's head and you and the steer go down in the dirt and you actually do a front flip with the steer.
Wow.
It's called hula handing, and it doesn't feel too great.
Do you do that on purpose, or
no, that's complete accident. You don't want to do that.
Right.
So what happens? Like, real side note, what happens is if you weigh too much or you jump off in a bad way.
Right.
When you're jumping off on those cows, and you like, I think I weighed like 285 pounds when I was a sophomore. Whoa. So when I hit the ground, when I hit that cow's head, it just drove the cow's head into the ground and just tripped him.
Right.
Me and him would just go, head over hill just down the arena. So I was like, I don't really like this. So
I don't really like this.
I started getting into shape, a lot of running, and then wrestling helped a ton, right? And what happens is you just lose weight and get more athletic.
Yep.
right? And that just helps you in every aspect. So it definitely helped. When I started getting more athletic, that's when I started winning rodeos in high school.
The thing that always surprised me, I started being exposed to professional athletes when I was in medical school, and we specialized in NFL players. A lot of the players lived in San Diego in the off season. This is back when the Chargers were in San Diego. And so we'd have days where we would just shut down the office and have Chargers come in.
Oh, that's
and it was, we treated professional surfers and a lot of different athletes. And it always amazed me when someone would walk through the door for the first time and I'd be like, are they a surfer or are they, because I always pictured these NFL players to be giants, and yet a lot of them are not. And it's pretty amazing what they can do. I don't want to call them little, but you picture that as being a very physical sport. And so you would expect to have, obviously the positions that you play are a little bit different, but
yeah, no, for sure.
It always kind of, I kind of geek out with anybody that's the best at what they do. And I kind of look at what my mind thinks the stereotype is and say, either they fit it or they don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it almost makes me more intrigued when they don't fit it. To be honest, Sam, you look like you came off of a Hollywood shoot of any Western out there. You're the good guy in a Hollywood shoot. You know what I mean? Like you fit the stereotype 100%. But anyway, that's the geek side of me.
Yeah. No, yeah. You definitely gotta, I don't know, be in shape, right?
Yeah. But is it common that guys work out in the gym to be able to be better in the rodeo, or is it more like this is just because you've grown up around large animals and you just have to learn these techniques? Is it more technique or strength, or like what would you say the percentage is?
I would say like with strength and technique, we'll just talk like steer wrestling. You gotta be strong to do it, but a lot of it is technique, right? And I think just from what I've seen, I can't speak for everyone, but I think like those that compete on a real high level do work out. Like just, staying flexible. That's another one. You got to be flexible or you're going to get hurt,
right?
Especially in steer wrestling. And you do got to be in shape. Like you got to be pretty tight in tone. Or you can get hurt, like I said, or you're just not going to perform as well. But like naturally, I think, most people kind of see as cowboys being strong guys, and I think that is true. Like I'm not speaking for myself, but just people that I've been around that are cowboys and, just country folk,
right?
They tend to be stronger because, the saying farm strength,
yeah.
Right? That I definitely believe that. Like my dad, I can beat a lot of people in an arm wrestle. I cannot beat my dad.
Right.
That man is freaking strong. And that's all he does is, excavation, shoveling. Now he has a ranch. He builds fence all day,
Yeah.
And I think that's why farm strength's a thing, because, they're not just sitting in offices or driving around. They're, working their hands.
Land. Yeah.
Yeah. Like anyone that has done farm work, worked with cows, or even just in construction world, you've got to be strong. Like you're not going to have some weak guys in doing it. Like you got to have, some grit to you.
The funny thing is you don't even see yourself as this big ox. Like, I don't know if people can tell because you're sitting down, but you have a pretty dominant, you are exactly what I expect.
No.
So.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a baby sometimes. I'm like, man, I wish I was tougher. Like the people I work around or people I'm friends with, like my buddy Hayden that I bulldog with, that kid's tough. He has a brother and they're twins, and man, those are some tough kids. And they're like, he's a firefighter and his brother works for like the Forest Service and stuff, and they're tough. And they're cowboys too.
I always looked up to the farmers. The other thing that I always thought growing up was There's no way I was going to make it out with all 10 fingers because all the farmers I knew were missing at least one finger.
Yeah, I actually cut my finger off, but they sewed it back on, so that's good.
Was that how that happened?
It was through a chute.
Oh,
like
man.
I was loading cows.
Yeah.
And I was a kid. And I just stuck my finger in this hole.
Oh,
and
no.
my brother came
opened?
back and, so what happened? So my older brother was roping calves and I was helping him rope calves. And I was up there and I was opening the chute to let him out and stuff, And I don't know why I was doing it, but I put my finger in this hole and my brother came up to like shut the gate.
Yeah.
And there was a rod that came back and just cut it right off.
Oh, man.
And I just remember picking it up and it was like hanging by a piece of skin. And I was like, oh, no.
And they put it back on.
Yeah, they sewed it. Yeah, it
They
works.
did good. Look at that.
It's all good. So
I didn't know if that was just me, but like all the old farmers are missing at least one finger.
Yeah. And I'm also a mechanic. So a lot of people I work around, they're
missing fingers. Yeah. It's almost like you're not a true farmer. You're not a true mechanic.
If you don't have like a
missing
nub.
at least one finger. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have a nub to be a true farmer.
Yeah.
It's true.
To me, that's tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that would suck losing. Like, I'm glad they sewed it back on, but that would suck to lose a finger.
Yeah.
Completely.
All right, Sam, I would be negligent if I didn't ask you if you could walk us through the Nationals event.
Yeah. So just kind of like how it was.
Yeah.
To do it. One thing I'll say is there was a lot of pressure there. So the way they have it is, so Nationals, you have to bulldog 4 steers. So you have 4 rounds. So you have 3 rounds that everyone gets, and then you have a championship round. So in a sense, you have to bulldog 4 steers. So to be able to do that, a lot of it, like going back to the mental side of rodeo, you got to really stay calm, right? You can't psych yourself out. And that was, for me, that was the whole challenge. The whole rodeo is a week long, from Monday to Saturday. So that whole week was just me trying to mentally keep myself not psyching, getting psyched out. 'Cause like what happened was, the first round, I came out and I was able to win the first round, which was, pretty cool. Because going into Nationals, I was just happy to be there, honestly. I was like, this is cool. I'm going to go. I'm going to have fun. And then I come out and I win a round,
And then it's real.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, man, I just won a round. Like, I could, actually win this thing. Or I have a good shot. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I got a good shot. But mentally, keeping myself where I'm like, all right, you have to do it round by round. You can't be looking at like, oh, I'm going to win. But you have to think about, okay, what am I going to do the next year? All right, this is what I'm going to do. You got to get I just won a round, but now I got to win another round. So I got to focus on that round, right?
Right.
And I would say that was the whole experience of just doing that over and over again. And there's a lot of pressure there. I don't know if this goes along with your question, but I remember at Nationals, there's a tunnel. So everyone's sitting, all the people you're competing with they're sitting in this tunnel getting ready to go out into the arena and perform, right? And it's like silent. No one's talking. And me and my buddy Hayden, we're kind of talking, because I'm trying to keep it lively so that you don't, because when you sit there and you think too much, you just reminisce and you start getting nervous.
Yeah.
And I just remember the pressure. The pressure was insane. Like all these cowboys, and they're all the best in their region. These were the best of the best in college. And a lot of them right now, a lot of kids that I was competing against are all in pro rodeo. Like they're doing really good in pro. Like it was the best of the best there, and everyone wanted to win, and there was just a lot of pressure. So I think my experience, and that was the biggest thing that I learned and came out with is just trying to keep your head clear and mentally do it. That was kind of my experience. And then I was, fortunate. I did good in the second round, and then I did good in the third round, and then ended up, winning it. So it worked out
When
good.
did you realize that you had it?
Actually, I thought I lost, and then I heard the announcer say, "Oh, he won it," and I was like, "Oh." So what happened is I was sitting first going into the champion round, and there's a thing called a barrier, all right? And if you beat the steer out, it's a penalty. It's a 10-second penalty.
Right.
So if you beat the steer out, it's called breaking the barrier.
Right.
And if you break the barrier, whatever time you get, they add 10 seconds.
Which is forever.
Yeah, so you're done.
You're done.
And so I came out, and as I was running out, I thought I broke the barrier. So I mentally, as I was running down the arena, I was bulldogging my last steer, I was like, I just lost. And after I bulldogged the steer, I looked back to see if I broke, and I couldn't see anything. And I was like, I thought I broke. So I thought I lost.
Right.
And I stood up, and then I heard them. They're like, "This is your world champion." I was like, "Oh, never mind."
That's awesome.
I didn't lose. So
awesome.
that's actually how it went.
Yeah.
But no, it was a really cool experience. It was awesome. It was cool.
That would be addicting, definitely.
Yeah. There's nothing. Anyone that steer wrestles or any rodeo, when you go out and you do really well, even if you don't win, but like I said, like going back, it's you're competing against yourself. Like that's honestly your biggest competitor. When you go out and you do really good, and you, like for me, my favorite part is when I catch the steer. That's my favorite part. I love that feeling. And when my feet hit the ground and I bring it around, that's my favorite feeling.
How far do you usually ski after you?
It just depends. Depends on how fast you're going, or it depends on how strong the steer is. You usually will ski him about, 10, 15 feet, somewhere around there. Like I said, depends.
Yeah.
So, anytime you do really good, you just stand up and you just feel good. So, it was a cool experience.
So I gotta ask you, because I didn't meet you. I wasn't the one that
Eddie Joe
exposed
met
you
me.
to grow buff or to grow muscle. What was your first experience like with grow muscle?
It was good after, but so my experience was is Hetty, Hetty.
I know
so Hetty's a friend of mine. She came, yelling at me in the gym, how she is.
That's strange. Yeah.
Yeah, I love her. But she came up to me, she's like, "You gotta try this." I was like, all right. And I don't take pre-workout. I don't take any supplements. I don't have the money. So if I'm being honest. So I was like, all right, I'll try it. It's free. She just gave me a bag that she was using. And I took it, and usually I take it 30 minutes before, right? Your pre-workout or whatever. And it started hitting me at like 10 minutes. And I got on my bike. I ride a street bike. And I was riding to the gym. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was freaking out because my ears started itching. My arms started going red. I just felt like I was on fire. I was like, oh crap, I'm having an allergic reaction. I was like, what is this crap she just gave me? And I was like, great. I'm just gonna this sucks. Now I gotta suffer through this. And I get to the gym and I was like, maybe I just gotta work out and it'll just go away. And I started working out, and that was probably one of the best workouts I've ever had. Because and now I know, you've got to take it at the gym.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy it because now I know how to take it, right?
Right.
So, and I love it because I don't have to warm up. Like my warm up's a lot quicker, and that burning as you get working out, you don't even feel the burn. So I'll take it and start working out. You don't even feel it.
Right.
And you just feel it gets your blood going a lot faster. I noticed my bench has gone up. When I do back, I'll use it, and just like everything, all my weight has gone up. It's been really good.
Yeah.
So I've really enjoyed it. So
are sports supplements a thing in rodeo?
Yeah, they are. Like Mountain Ops is a big deal.
Right.
Bucked Up's a big deal just because they're local.
Right.
So they go into rodeo a lot. But I mean, you got to think about it. These cowboys, like every time I go to a rodeo, there's Red Bulls and Monsters laying everywhere.
Right.
So, because that's how they live on the road, and then they get to a rodeo, and then you got to get, psyched up. And so they take an energy drink or take supplements, pre-workout, whatever.
Right.
So, I think it is. I would say so.
So if you were to compare this to Red Bull or Monster or the alternatives, what would you say the difference would be?
Oh, it's way better. You don't crash. That's another thing I really like about it. So it doesn't have much caffeine. It uses different ways. I haven't read, the actual breakdown of it.
It's okay.
Yeah. Probably shouldn't say that, but
no. It's mainly your experience, because it doesn't really matter the science behind it. It's how does it help you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And there's a reason I like it is it just doesn't have it. It's low caffeine, low stimulant, and it doesn't make you crash. And it keeps, like, for me, I have energy throughout the whole time. Like, if you go take, like, Bucked Up, a reason I don't use Bucked Up is just because there's a lot of caffeine in it.
Right.
And I'll have a crash. I'll have, like, a really high, and then I'll crash really hard.
Right.
I haven't had that with this, so I've really enjoyed it.
Good.
And like I said, it makes my warm-ups a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Because it gets your blood going a lot faster, so.
I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you survived the
burn.
Yeah. Everyone's so used to taking a half an hour before. I always tell them, like, set your bag down in the gym and then take it, because it'll hit you.
Well, Hetty told me that. She did warn me.
Right.
She said, you got to take it in the gym. And I was like, no, dude, what are you talking about? And then, I learned pretty quickly you got to take it at the gym. So.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm hoping we can do our part to help make sure that you succeed from here on out.
Yeah, you're the one that made it, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a question. Why did you go make a pre-workout? Why don't you just use the generic pre-workouts?
So it's a bit of a long story, but basically, I grew up in an area where our religious beliefs are not common. And so people felt very comfortable being very blunt, saying, why do you care if you drink caffeine or not? And so you kind of had to either put up or shut up. Like, either you believe this or you don't. And so I had no stimulants, none. Like, literally, so for 26 years with no stimulants. But as I got older, it just became a little bit harder. In the realm that I'm working in, the guys I'm working with are half my age, and I'm expected to do the same thing they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I felt less restricted when it came out that technically wasn't part of our religious belief, that caffeine wasn't a restriction. Obviously, high amounts of caffeine clearly aren't good for your body. You know what I mean? So I decided... I'd always learned about some of these phenomenal sports ingredients, but they were always paired with caffeine. And so I never really got a chance to. And so literally, that was the first thing I wanted to try. And I tried probably the most watered down, weak stimulant pre-workout, and it just jacked me up. I didn't even dare work out. My heart was racing, my hands were shaking, and I'm like, this can't be good. You know what I mean? And so, luckily, in medical school, I took a clinical research and design class. Even though I'm not a chemist, I'm not a researcher. There's really basic things, and I recognized that I could buy these sports ingredients straight from the lab, pharmaceutical grade. I was done having kids. I wasn't worried about mutating my kids as I experiment on myself. And I mean, this is beta alanine, citrulline. It's nothing like crazy, but you don't know. You're testing it on your body. And so the number one thing I had to work around was the stimulant. So how do you replace what's going to deliver everything throughout your whole body? And I just stumbled across this old bodybuilder technique. Old bodybuilders, back in the golden age of bodybuilding, before they started using steroids, they used a lot of high doses of niacin. And it's interesting because I'll meet...
What is niacin?
So niacin is just vitamin B3. It's one of the vitamins. Up until then, I always thought vitamins were like a mental thing. You take them and you feel like you're doing good for your body, but really you don't notice a difference, right? But I started adding that into what I was making, and I never knew about the niacin flush. And I had a bag full of powdered niacin, and it puffed up into my face, and I inhaled it, and I flushed like crazy. Like I had a 2nd-degree sunburn. I went to work probably an hour after that, and everybody was teasing me saying like, oh, somebody got some sun. And in Chinese, this doesn't make a lot of sense in Western medicine, but in Chinese medicine, pain is looked at completely differently. All pain in Chinese medicine is because of a blockage of flow. And so all of the herbal formulas that you're giving to people for various types of pain use what are called blood invigorators, so things that just make everything flow. And so even though this isn't a Chinese ingredient, it's vitamin B3, it's niacin, I recognize right away in Chinese medicine there's something called a medicine horse. And what that means is you'll include an herb or something from the materia medica that has an effect on a target tissue, but it's not necessarily meant for what you're doing. You're just using it to get the medicine there. It's the horse is what the medicine rides to get to what you're targeting. And so in trying to target all of the muscles, because like every time you work out, you're going to work out your back one time, you're going to work out your core, you know what I mean? You work different muscle groups. I want to be able to target all of the muscles. And it was pretty obvious that high doses of niacin or NAD or vitamin B3 was a pretty good medicine horse for moving blood, you know? And so I replaced the stimulants with niacin or NAD. And that really changed, it altered everything about how much of the other ingredients I was going to use. Because if you talk to a lot of people, when they're looking at a sports supplement, they're like, oh, I got to make sure it's got this much citrulline. It's got to have this much beta-alanine. It's got to have this much. And they don't understand that more isn't always better. As a firefighter paramedic on the ambulance, we have different medications. And the best way that I explain this to people is one of the medications we have is atropine. Yeah. And atropine, depending on the dose, will treat completely different things. One I'm using to treat the heart. One I'm using because the kid got into a pesticide. And so it's the antidote for the pesticide. But atropine comes from a plant called foxglove or deadly nightshade, like Shakespeare talks about. I think it's Romeo and Juliet try to kill themselves with deadly nightshade. Mm-hmm. This is all the same medicinal, but these different doses have completely different effects. And that's not always seen as for pharmaceuticals. For pharmaceuticals, in Western medicine, we slap a label on someone and we say, you're a diabetic. So you're just exactly like everybody else who's a diabetic, and then it's just milligram per kilogram for dosing, right? Yeah. But in Chinese medicine, one of the things that they taught me is you treat the person, not the label. And so they may the symptoms may be completely different from someone else who has the same label, and so you're going to treat that person and not the label. I know that was a really long answer to your question, but that's what kind of drove me coming up with. And I mean, I didn't care what anybody else thought because I was never bringing this to market. This was just for me. I'm just looking for something to solve a problem. Yeah. Turned out a lot of other people had the same problem. So.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
I mean, who would have thought I'm helping out rodeo stars, you know?
Yeah, true.
It's been a fun ride.
I'm glad I asked that because now I feel a little safer taking it because now I know what's in it. So,
well, that's good. And the awesome thing about it is I'm a lover, not a fighter, right? And yet that's weird because my day job or my profession, you know, I'm an operator. And so you think all I am doing is fighting, but the reality is I don't want to hurt anybody if I don't have to. And so my wife's parents are in their 80s, and they've taken this for 8 years. Like my whole family takes this. And
Cool.
it wouldn't be worth it if I hurt anyone. Not just because they're my family, anybody outside of my family, anybody. And I've spent a lot of time digging back into the research to make sure that this isn't going to harm someone. And I'm pretty proud of the fact that it really just does good. It's not. I haven't harmed. I know when you get that flush, you freak out and you think you're having an allergic reaction, and you really are. It's a false allergic reaction because what happens is when your body dumps all those toxins, and the niacin is what starts it, right? Another system in your body freaks out and says, oh my gosh, we got to protect the body. There's all these toxins in the blood. So they release histamine. And they do that in the exact same way that they would for any other allergic reaction. But as soon as the histamine gets to the bloodstream and says, oh, this is normal physiological waste. This is normal waste from our body that we always dump. We just never dump that much at one time. And so that's why it doesn't progress any further. You don't get the airway constriction. You don't get any of the negative things. But now it's too late. The blood flow is at the surface level and bathing your muscles, and your lymph is flowing, and that's when everything can go to work. Yeah, the pump is really good. That's something else I forgot. You don't have to warm up as much, and the pump, you have a really good pump on it. And I think that's what makes a pre-workout worth having, is if you can get a good pump off it. Right? Oh yeah. So a good pump and endurance to keep going. Yep. So, okay, that makes a lot more sense of why or how that even works, getting blood